Time to look at business news with Will Edwards. Will, let's start in Ireland, where more pain could be on the way for taxpayers.
That's right. Now, an austerity budget, the country's second since it was bailed out in 2010, is being unveiled today. Of course, Ireland often held up as something as an example of the austerity method, as opposed to countries like Greece and Portugal, where it's not going quite so well. But despite the fact that things are going to plan, doesn't mean it's been easy or popular, as France 24's correspondent Hervé Amérique explains.
No way! We won't pay! No way!
Protests like this have become a regular sight. According to the last opinion poll, a clear majority fear they will be unable to meet their financial commitments after the government takes €3.5 billion out of the economy in the new budget.
That's going to be made up about 2/3 of cuts, 1/3 of taxes, and people are saying that that is too difficult. They're saying that the wealthy should be paying more, but the government is reluctant to increase taxes anymore because they don't want to disincentivise work.
In the firing line, pensioners and workers on low to middle incomes. Their social contributions are on the way up, while there are severe cuts in health and welfare. Child benefit for this family is being reduced. And for the first time here, there will be a house tax.
This property tax is looking to be €300–500 in people's annual household bill that people just don't have. That is not fair for Europe and Irish government to impose those austerity measures on us. So we're here today to say no to the IMF, no to the ECB, no to the Troika, no to the Irish government.
The government says its strategy is the only way to save the economy.
Over the past 18 months or so, we have transformed ourselves from a country that was in freefall to one that is now getting back on its feet again. And that is in large part due to the fact that we have been able to attract inward investment.
The overall economic environment is nowhere near as difficult as it was for some of the previous budgets. And I think householders will begin to feel that now. We'll begin to see some further employment opportunities. We'll begin to see some modest pay growth, for example.
But since the austerity plan was set in motion, unemployment has gone up to 15%. It is now a major issue.
And it's austerity too in the UK, Will.
Yeah, the six-monthly autumn statement from Chancellor George Osborne is going to be announced today. This is the sort of mini-budget in between the major budgets held around March. It's not expected to be that enjoyable for the Chancellor because, well, the Office of Budgetary Responsibility, economic forecasting body he set up, is expected to confirm that the government is going to miss key targets on cutting its debt, the targets it set itself, and also revise growth down this year to around 0%. So things not going so well in the UK, and as a result, it means that the austerity measures are going to go on probably for longer than expected until at least 2018, another few years yet. Obviously, the opposition liking the look of that, saying it vindicates their policies.
What's the news from the markets this morning?
Well, things have been pretty disappointing in the US in the previous session. Still worries about the fiscal cliff, of course, keeping things down. In the coming session in the US, things might be helped by a tentative agreement at the port of Los Angeles. Of course, we heard about that strike yesterday that's been going on for over a week, losing billions of dollars for the economy. A deal in the offing there. Let's take a look at how things are going in Asia. Meanwhile, a completely different story, particularly in Shanghai, which is leading the way. You can see still up by almost 3% there, a bounce back after shares on the Shanghai market hit near 4-year lows. So I suppose the only way is up.
Well, speaking of the markets, one of the worst performers on the French markets yesterday was EDF, closing down 2.3%. The electricity giant says the cost of building a long-delayed nuclear reactor in the west of France will be billions of euros higher than previously thought. And now a key partner has pulled out of what was meant to be a showcase project.
It was meant to be a symbol of French high-tech innovation, but the new generation EPR nuclear plant on France's northern coast is over budget and behind schedule. The opening of the facility in Flamanville had already been delayed until 2016, but constructor EDF has had to revise up the estimated cost of the project several times now to the most recent figure of €8.5 billion. All too much for one of the project's investors, Italian utility company Enel, which pulled out on Tuesday. The group is now due to be paid back some €700 million of the money it's already put into the project, costs which fall back on state-owned EDF.
It's the French that will pay the bill for this chaos. How? the state, EDF's shareholder, will have to pay. It will be the customers who will pay in their electricity bills.
EPR nuclear plants are meant to be safer and provide better value for money than older power stations, but the estimated cost of electricity from the Flamanville plant has spiralled to €105 per megawatt. Greenpeace claims that's twice the cost of nuclear power currently, but EDF says the price will be competitive.
In the average cost of French nuclear energy, it remains by far the cheapest way of producing electricity.
The French government remains committed to Flamanville, just one of 4 EPR plants being built around the world. Analysts say the increased costs and delays seen in France may put other plant stations in jeopardy.
Well, let's take a look at the airline industry, and in particular British Airways, which is slimming down.
Yeah, they've announced that they're getting rid of 400 cabin crew out of around 14,000 in all. They're hoping to do so through voluntary redundancies, so no compulsory firings there. Of course, British Airways is now part of the IAG group. It merged with Iberia, the Spanish flag carrier, which itself is pressing ahead with cutting 4,500 jobs.
Now, in the US, there's a British brand that's making a tactical withdrawal.
Yeah, this is Fresh and Easy. Even if you live in the US, you probably won't have heard of them, but they were Tesco's big plan to break into the US market.
Tesco being the British supermarket.
Exactly, the biggest supermarket in the UK, one of the biggest in the world after Walmart and Carrefour. Well, it hasn't really been a hit with consumers. They've poured over £1 billion into this project. They've got 200 or so stores based in California and Nevada, but they did have plans for thousands of the things all across the US. Obviously, it didn't go quite so well. It's expected to be announced that they're going to have a strategic rethink on this later on today. Ironically, one investor that could step in and take the chain off their hands is Walmart. Ironic given the fact that, of course, the reason Tesco got into the US in the first place was to bring the fight to Walmart's home market.
And that hasn't worked. Well, now we have time for one last story. A criminal that you've labeled the dumbest criminals of all time.
There's always a lot of competition for that position, isn't there? But this is quite incredible. Hannah Sabata, a 19-year-old from Waco, Nebraska. You can see her there holding a load of cash. That's because she robbed a bank and then put a video on YouTube boasting about it. The text underneath this video says, "I just stole a car and robbed a bank. Now I'm rich, I can pay off my college financial aid, and tomorrow I'm going on a shopping spree." She does mention drugs in the video, so presumably I can only imagine that that is the only reason you'd post a video like this admitting and boasting about a crime like this. Of course, law enforcement quickly caught up with her.
No surprise there. Thank you very much, Will Edwards. That was Business News. More world news coming up in just a few minutes with Stuart Norval. Bye-bye.